getting right into the dynasty years. So it was like the perfect time to like all of a sudden find and cultivate my love of the Cowboys. So yeah, I was hooked. I was hooked at a young age.
How much crap did the one brother give you when DeMarcus Ware won a title with the Broncos?
We're still a little bit not so tight after that, but yeah, no, it's okay.
What's your favorite Cowboys memory, Lacey?
You know, honestly, it had to be Super Bowl 28. You know, down 13-6 at the half, and then you had James Washington, I think it was the safety who recovered that fumble, and then that just started Emmitt Smith's track of, you know, just going down, pretty much putting the team on his back and pulling out a win, 30-13. So I mean, like 24 unanswered points in the half. I mean, like that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's a good choice.
Emmett, man, he's probably part of a lot of people's favorite memories. You know, speaking of Emmett, who is your all-time favorite Cowboys player?
You guys are probably gonna hate me for this, but you know, I loved Aikman growing up, but ever since Dak has taken over, I've become a huge Dak fan. And honestly, I'm on my second marriage, and my first husband didn't like football at all. I don't know what red-blooded American male doesn't like, you know, NFL football, but he didn't. But my husband's a Cowboys fan, and he doesn't like Dak all that much. And so we always it's one of the things that we talk about in the family is like, agree to disagree. Let's not go down this road right now, because we go at it a little bit. But I have such respect for Dak, for what he's overcome in his life, and for who he is as a player, and who he is as a person, and who he is as a leader. I mean, being in having been in the military, I'm very versed in leadership and all that stuff, and seeing good leaders and bad leaders. And I'm just super impressed by Dak, and he's awesome. But yeah, I mean, growing up though, it was Aikman. I loved Aikman.
It blows my mind nowadays that people, you know, the younger Cowboys fans that never saw him, they look at the stats and like, well, Aikman wasn't a great quarterback. He was just carried by a great team. And I'm like, you guys have zero idea. He literally carried that. The last time Super Bowl they won, he literally carried that team because the coach they got couldn't coach. He couldn't do anything. He was like the worst coach ever. And Aikman had to be coach quarterback for that. People will never understand. They'll look at a stat sheet and never understand how much more Aikman is closer to Staubach than he is to any other. And I love Dak. Dak's getting there. You know, he's up there. He wins one. He's right with them. But the disrespect Aikman gets, it absolutely blows my mind.
It's insane. He was another like serious leader. Like that's why I think I was so blown away by Jerry Jones talking about Dak and being like, he is the best leader I've seen on the team. And I'm like, really? Over Aikman? I mean, no knock on Dak. I love Dak, but like, you know, Aikman, even though his style, I think it's the fact that his style was so different from a leadership perspective than say Dak's is. You know, Dak's tends to be super upbeat from what we've seen in all the video and everything else. And Aikman wasn't afraid to sit there and just literally, you know, rip someone to shreds if need be, which I love that. I mean, I thought Aikman was great.
I'm going to mess up Paul's whole show sheet because obviously Dak's your current player. So I'm going to ask you what your Cowboys Mount Rushmore is.
Well, I left Dak off the, Mount Rushmore, to tell you the truth. And because it goes back to like why I fell in love with the Cowboys in the first place, right? You know, at a very young age, getting to live in that dynasty years and everything else. I mean, automatically you have to have the triplets up there. And then what would a Mount Rushmore be without Jimmy Johnson? I mean, like,
oh man, yeah,
that's
like in my mind, like that was everyone always talks about Cowboys fans and how we're like, quote unquote, living in the, olden days. Well, those are some awesome olden days. And I got to see them in person. So I actually don't have any current players on my Mount Rushmore right now, even though Dak is like my current favorite. Like, I think that those 4 individuals made magic happen for the Cowboys Nation, honestly.
I had 2 of those, and 2 of my other ones were even before that, just out of respect. So I didn't have any current ones either. So I'm with you. We love them, but you got to show respect to the champions.
Yeah. Well, I was born in 82. So like from that perspective, like, 8 or 9 years old, getting to 10 years old, like that's when things started to get like pretty awesome. So that's what I remember. So that's why, I mean, I know that like Roger Staubach is amazing, and you have amazing coaches beforehand and everything else. But yeah, those 4 are my Mount Rushmore for the Cowboys.
It's hard to think about the Cowboys without thinking about the triplets and Jimmy Johnson. So that's a great Mount Rushmore for sure.
Yeah.
What was your favorite offseason move by the Cowboys, as limited as they might have been?
For this offseason or offseason in general?
This offseason, yeah.
This offseason was hard, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I get so if I get frustrated with the team for anything, and it's not the players, obviously, it's the decisions being made, and it's not even the coaches to a certain extent. It's the fact that there are different ways to build a team, and I feel like this, last offseason, they really, screwed things up by not extending people who they should have extended in advance, and freeing up the cap space and everything else. Like, I get so frustrated by it. So I'm going to throw some love to the special teams and say my favorite offseason move was for them to extend Trent Sieg.
She did the lock snapper.
I mean,
that's amazing. I love that.
Because, like, I get it. And we can talk about the draft and everything else. And Will McClay is amazing. Like, he is absolutely amazing. And I think he definitely hit on some amazing picks. But, like, I really want to focus on free agency. And from the standpoint of what we did free agency, we didn't do a whole heck of a lot other than, like, Eric Kendricks, which I'm excited about. But I'm going to give special teams some love. That dude is so funny on X with all of his posts about special teams need love too. So, yeah, we'll go with the very first person that they extended being the long snapper.
I love that. With all the guys that Dallas lost this offseason, who do you think is going to be the toughest to replace?
So if I could, I'd like to answer that in 2 different ways.
Of course.
I think that the loss of Tyron Smith, mainly from being a vet perspective and all the knowledge that he had, like that to me, if he could have had 1 year with Tyler Guyton, because Guyton's already doing great. I mean, that dude has been putting in the work with, OL masterminds and everything else. But I know that Tyler Smith trained with Tyron, so I'm hoping that some of that knowledge is being passed along, and I'm sure it is. But to have had that opportunity to have some of our young O-line members get to learn from him, I think that would have been huge. The other one I feel we're going to be hurting from, because, who knows? I mean, Tyler Guyton might just roll right in and he might be fine, or Chuma might. Who knows? Go ahead.
I said, no, he won't. Not Chuma.
I'm trying to be nice here. But I think Dorrance Armstrong was one that I was just like, man, that sucks. From a defensive perspective, like that sucked. Especially because he also then went to, the Washington Cowboys, with Dan Quinn. I mean, it bugged the crap out of me that so many of our guys went to that team specifically, but I get it. Got to go where the money goes. You know what I mean?
They paid it. Like Dorrance Armstrong that's like a starter. Like you're going to be the guy on that defensive end. Like we're not bringing in a draft pick. You're the guy there. I love Dorrance, special teams, everything. He was great, but I don't know if you want him as like he's your DeMarcus Lawrence now.
Yeah. No, and I get it, but he was someone that, like when you look at our defense right now, like my biggest concern is, and it's admittedly, I will say going up into camp, I was a lot more concerned, but now that we've seen some things in camp, I'm not as, I'm still concerned, but I'm not like as concerned, which is our depth, right? And stopping the run game. I mean, that's what we saw last year was one of our biggest Achilles heels, and that is something that he understood the players, he understands the plays, but Z came in, Coach Zim, and he kind of flipped the switch on everything. So it doesn't necessarily matter as much, but I would say those would be my two where I'm like, man, I really would have loved Tyron to be able to work with our new young guys. And then, Dorrance Armstrong was one where I was like, that sucks from a depth perspective.
Yeah, losing Tyron and Dorrance is low-key a pretty big loss. You're the second guest in a row to say that. So, yeah, I think people are realizing how difficult he will be to replace for sure. What is your biggest concern heading into the 2024 season?
So, again, our depth, number one, just because from the standpoint of with God, that Sam Williams injury just killed me. Not only for him as a person, as someone who is, who was really potentially going to get his big shot, right? Like that sucked hardcore, and it killed me as a person, as a human being. Let's put football and everything else aside and what it means for the Cowboys, but for him specifically, that just killed my heart a little bit. So having that defense in depth. But, I look at the last 3 years. I mean, we talk about it all the time, 3 12-5 seasons in a row. And, other than beating Tampa Bay, for the first round, last year, or not last year, but the year before, it just seems like we're constantly missing that little extra something, and it seems like no one could ever like put it in terms of which, anyone cannot truly understand what it is. But it's, if I think anything that I'm worried about is that little extra something isn't brought together again this year. And we run into this situation where we are, regular season amazingness and everyone's, talking us up. And then we get to the playoffs and something just falls apart. I hope not with, Coach Zim's changes in his, scheme. I'm really hoping the running back committee works. That's the other thing that I'm kind of concerned about. But been seeing great things out of Zeke, great things out of Royce Freeman. I'm hoping the groin injury isn't bad. And Rico does a good job. So I'm hoping that works for us. But that would be the one thing. I mean, we kill them all the time in the passing game. It's the run game that has somewhat struggled a little bit. And last year, from my perspective, Pollard did a good job with what he was given, but I just think they didn't utilize him the right way. I mean, for his size and his abilities and everything else, I think that they utilized him in the wrong way. But,
yeah, the O-line didn't seem to be able to open holes for anybody. Like you didn't get a good look at Deuce because he was hit every time 2 yards deep in the backfield. Like they just had too many issues. I think Steele and Martin dealing with injuries and Biotish being just, not a guy that is a good push guy. And Tyron, as great as a pass blocker as he wasn't the same run blocker guy. And, you're not going to be able to do that with no matter how good your back is. If all you have is Tyler Smith really moving people, it's going to make it tough.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I just, I think it'll be interesting. I think the other one that, we don't talk about as much, and I wish that we would, is Hunter Luepke. You know what I mean? I think that Hunter Luepke is going to be huge if given the opportunity. I saw some moments of goodness in the Miami game, and then that end zone botched handoff, you know what I mean? And then they never went back to him after that. So I don't put all of this on the players per se. Some of that was play calling, you know what I mean? It was the scheme, the run scheme in general. Like there were issues. So yeah, I think my whole thing is that I really wish that we would have gone after a little bit more, defense in depth in certain positions, especially from a vet perspective. We have some amazing rookies. Like, I'm super, super jazzed about like this draft class. But they're rookies, like it might take a little bit for them just to play at that level. And they're going to be great, but we got to be realistic.
I'm going to try to sell this next question because mostly everybody has the same answer. So let me try to sell it. The rookie class, that was really great that you talked about. We got a great rookie class coming in. Overshown coming back off injury. We got Diggs back, right? Maybe the offensive line with Hoffman. Maybe he's an upgrade over Biotish. I don't know. Is it possible the team's better this year, or did they just lose too much and not get enough back and they're worse?
So the one thing you'll know about me is that I'm super optimistic, and I tend to be, even though it's literally been like 30 years of, like legit 30 years of some terribleness. I actually think that they are. Where I think the difference is going to be is that our schedule this year is super tough. Super, super tough. I mean, you look at who we're going to be facing right off the bat. It's going to be, like Tyler Guyton, for instance. The dude's been showing out, right? Like, if he ends up getting the starting spot over Chuma, which I did see some goodness in Chuma in camp, but I heard that he got injured too, something small. But, my whole thing there is you're going to have a rookie who's going to be going against Myles Garrett right off the bat, protecting our QB1's blind side. That is scary, and it should be scary for anyone. And legit, I was joking around with one of my favorite content creators or fans on there, Martin Talks Cowboys. And I was talking to Martin, and I was like, we need to say a prayer for Dak. You know what I mean? Like, we need to say, because we didn't know that Tyler had fixed a lot of the problems that we thought Tyler Guyton was going to have coming in. He has fixed a lot of those things. I've been super, super impressed by him, honestly. But we're going to have some really tough games. It's going to be an interesting, it's going to be an interesting season. But the one thing I will say is what I'm going to try to do better this year is, as they start to play, and if we, again, because I think everyone I've seen, it's been like 9-8, like all the projections, 9-8, 8-9. The highest projection I think I saw was like a 10-7. And so, like, anything above that, everyone can just go and, I'm going to keep it PG and not swear on the podcast, but, they can just miss me with that noise. You know what I mean? Because you already said they weren't going to do great. In every single year they have said the Cowboys aren't going to do great, and they've come out and been 12-5, and they've made it to the playoffs. And you know what I mean? So, like, from that perspective, I'm just not going to give a fuck at that point. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah. The people saying that we're going to go under, Dak has never gone under 500 ever, with way worse teams than he has this year. I know there's not a lot of depth, but they got players on this team, so people thinking that they're going to be like 7 wins blows my mind. I'm like, the schedule ain't that hard. Like, that's too much in my opinion.
I think it's going to be a challenge. And I think it's going to be a challenge because there's so many people that are on 1-year deals, coaches and players alike. And I personally don't agree with that decision-making. that has been done, but that's just my own personal preference on things. I mean, I know there's a time and place for everything, but if your entire a big group of your people are on 1-year deals, I mean that is tough. That's a tough to get buy-in, and to sell, hey, why these players should literally put their bodies and their health on the line when the ownership is only willing to give them a year. You know what I mean? Like, that's tough.
Yeah.
So I know you're a fan of Dak, Lacey, but what are your thoughts on both Dak and Mike McCarthy being both on prove-it type deals heading into this season?
I just hate it. I hate it. I think it goes against every single thing that we know, not only in the football world, but like in business in general, right? Like if you truly, I think in general, one of the biggest things from a Dak perspective that I hate is I hate the double standard, right? I hate the double standard. I hate that it's Super Bowl or bust for him every single year. There are literally so many teams out there that would love to have him be on their team, and would love the fact that they might, they make the playoffs and maybe don't, make it as far. And everyone always puts that on Dak's shoulders, and it drives me crazy because football isn't played by one man. And yes, he is a very big part of that. He's a very big part of that, and I get that. But there were a lot of issues wrong when we've lost. There have been a lot of issues, and people like Outlaw, he has the stats, right? And I sit there and I'm in awe of this guy on X with all of his stats, and it shows it all, right? But you just have some people who are so hateful about it, and so they feel like Dak needs to constantly be in this make it or break it year scenario. And I think that Dak has more than proven himself that, like, he should have gotten his extension. He should have gotten an extension like well in advance to where we're at right now. And I think Mike McCarthy's the same way. From that perspective, you have a coach who's coached your team to 12-5 seasons in a row, and has consistently shown, and keep in mind, he was hamstrung by, his first year, he was hamstrung by some of the coaches that had to be kept on, because that's how it all worked. And I'm really hopeful that this year, where 100% everyone is there, that he wants to be there, that from my understanding, I don't know about Zim, honestly, maybe someone has the tea on that one, but I think that you don't take star people and you don't sit there and you say, oh, we're going to have you play out your, you know what I mean? Like, I can understand if you're at the end of your career. Dak's not at the end of his career. Mike McCarthy's not at the end of his career as a coach. Like, you don't do that, because why put on the extra, you know what I mean?
Yeah, your owners are cheap. That's the real answer why. They're cheap. So would you, if you could only extend one, would Dak be your guy? I know we could get we know they can sign all three. We know that in real world, but in stupid Dallas land, would Dak be your one if it meant you lost Lamb or Micah, or would you pick one of the other two because they're younger?
So I'm going to tell you what I told him before this even started. This is the question that I was dreading. I was dreading this question because I am the type of person that I sit there and I go, they can do all three. Like, they just have to do it, and they have to be smart enough to do it. It's super tough, right? Like, from the standpoint, when I look at the situation, I go, you have a guy who at the QB1 position who, he came out in 4th round of the draft, right, Dak?
Mm-hmm.
My brain is, sorry, I still have slight chemo brain sometimes, so like my brain doesn't function well. But 4th rounder who became an MVP runner-up, right? And I would argue if Dak was on any other team, if he was on any other team wearing any other uniform, that man would have been MVP last year. He would have. He would have. And your QB1 position is so super important Dak has the buy-in of the team and in the players, and he has the trust of the coaches. And I think that that's super important. CD he's phenomenal. He's phenomenal. There are things that I didn't like that I saw, especially in the Green Bay game at the end there, but he's phenomenal. And he should be absolutely 100% one of the top receivers being paid right now. And then Micah is just a freak of nature. Like, he is just a freak of nature, honestly. If I had to extend anyone, and this is probably going to be not a very popular answer, it would be Dak. It would be Dak, just because of the standpoint of his leadership and everything else and his abilities. I would extend Dak over the other two. But I fully think that they can extend all three. They just need to effing do it. You know what I mean?
That's crazy, Paul. Lacey wants to get rid of Lamb and Micah Parsons. Wow. Wow. Breaking news, guys.
Winning football games is a lot easier with a really good quarterback, so I can't fault you for your decision, Lacey. I really can't.
And from that perspective, like, that's the one thing that gets me when everyone's sitting there like, let's get rid of Dak. Let's get rid of, Dak. Okay, who are we going to go get? What's the game plan? We didn't draft anyone. And you got Lance, who, he is literally, this is his last year too, right? They didn't re-up his last year. And you got Cooper Rush. He's going to be a free agent in 2025. And in my opinion, Cooper Rush is a great QB2. He is not QB1 material. He does not have the arm. He doesn't have the mobility, in my opinion. Now, so what are you going to do? Who are you going to go get? I don't want to be in QB hell for the next, 3 to 5 years. Does anyone else?
Trevor Lawrence was my highest graded player since Andrew Luck. He hadn't been anything. He's the number one overall pick. Sure, you could get Mahomes, Burrow, CJ Stroud. You could get one of those three. Or what's Herbert done? Been an excellent quarterback. What's he done that's been better than Dak? Okay, so you got another. You might get another Dak that puts up stats and then hasn't won anything. Lawrence has been worse. Justin Fields, how'd that work out? He's already gone off his team. Daniel Jones was a top 6 pick. Daniel Jones was a top 6 pick.
We could sign Daniel Jones if Dak walks.
I'm just saying, in general, when you think about it, guys, honestly, some of those players that you mentioned, right? The Trevor Lawrences, the Justin Herberts, all those players. What have they done recently? And that's where my frustration with the double standard comes into play. And I think this is where Cowboys Nation sometimes is our own worst enemy, because we are super critical of Dak. And we put all these unrealistic expectations, on the team every single year, Super Bowl or bust, right? And you look at the people that they were even, in mainstream, sports analysts and everything else, and they put some of these quarterbacks above Dak, and I'm like, this is insane. They haven't won in the playoffs. They didn't even make it to the playoffs. And you're telling me that he's still a better quarterback than Dak Prescott? That's insane to me. And then, what was it recently? What's her name? Joy, whatever.
Joy Taylor. Jason Taylor's sister.
She just legit came out and said, if Dak was on any other team, I think we'd be talking differently about him. So I'm first of all, I was hallelujah, finally someone told the effing truth, that this is an issue that with the Cowboys for whatever reason. But that's why I look at Dak and I'm bro, for him to handle himself the way that he does every single year with the level of scrutiny that's on that QB1 position, and to have him operate the way that he does, you can't just have any quarterback come in and be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. Could you imagine, if we got Shedeur Sanders? Do you think that Shedeur Sanders could handle being the Dallas Cowboys quarterback?
No way in hell.
You have to have the right mentality person to be that person. And Dak's that guy. So sorry, long answer. It would be Dak. I would extend Dak.
Just go out there and get Josh Allen or one of those other guys, Lamar Jackson, who have done what? Got their ass beat in one AFC Championship game that they've been like. It's silly. I'm
But
right.
they're all better than Dak. Everyone, Dak sucks. Dak sucks. It's just insane.
You heard it here first, guys. Dak sucks.
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills sometimes when I'm on X. I literally have to set my phone down nicely because if not, I'd probably throw it, and then I have to walk away and walk.
Please be careful when you say I feel like I'm on crazy pills when I'm on X.
Oh yeah.
That's why I still call it Twitter, just in case.
Yeah, valid.
Well, Lacey, I know you'd sign Dak as one of the the big three if you had to choose one of those guys. But of the secondary players like a Jake Ferguson, DeRon Bland, or an Osa Odigizua, which one of those three guys would you sign?
This was my second worst question that I didn't want to answer because I love them all. But yeah, Ferguson. I think he's going to be. I feel like he's going to be, phenomenal. I feel like he has the right attitude. And you need that attitude. You need the Dak Prescotts who can handle all the pressure and everything else, and then you just need the Jake Fergusons who are I don't give a flying fuck, and I'm gonna do this. I mean, God, that Seattle Seahawks game was amazing when he stood up and he gave that first down signal right in that dude's face, and then he got the touchdown right in front. That was amazing. I mean, and you saw a little bit of the villain Dak come out that game too, where he was just I'm a big body, I can do that. I love that attitude. If people are gonna sit there and talk about how crappy the Cowboys are, then just go out and wreck house. You know what I mean? And not give a flying fuck. So Jake would be the one. And unfortunately, with training camp and everything else, we know how some of the others are doing. And I say Jake because of the fact that you have Schoon, who's hurt again, which that sucks for him and blows for him. But that leaves a little question in the, tight end room. And then you look at our secondary from the standpoint of DeRon Bland coming off a record-breaking year, yeah, but you also have Trayvon Diggs and you have Kalen Carson and you have, other entities. You have Wanya Thomas. Wanya's he's not even a starter, and he does more special team stuff right now. But Wanya is amazing, and he's been as solid as a rock. And I think Lewis is going to have a better year. So unfortunately, I tend to lean towards Fergie because of that, where I think that the tight end group right now would probably need him more than the other two sets. But that's just me.
Your explanation actually kind of leans into the next question. So take Micah. Everybody's excited to see Micah, but minus him, who are you excited to see on this defense with Zimmer now? Who's your other guy that you're I can't wait to see him?
Up until the video I just saw of Marist, I would have said Overshown. But after I saw Marist run over Overshown, or not Overshown, run over Tyler Smith,
yeah,
I am super pumped about the defense right now. From everything that I've been seeing and reading and watching, I am super, super pumped about Overshown. I'm excited to see what Eric Kendricks can do. It takes a lot, in my opinion, to go away from a team that would have paid you more money just to go play for another coach. That speaks volumes to me. And that shows a level of loyalty that I have mad respect for. So from that perspective, Overshown, Eric Kendricks, those are two ones. And then now Marist. I mean, I'm just holy cow, that dude he just laid out Tyler Smith. How is that even possible?
The way they flipped this linebacker core, with Overshown coming back a year later off his injury, bigger, drafting Leofau. And look, ain't nobody, I don't care, up until the moment it happened and people saw it on tape, nobody thought, no matter how much you loved Leofau, nobody thought that guy is going to run in and like put it on Tyler Smith and back him up. And he did in a practice. It was beautiful. And then I like Kendricks because he plays. Like I like LVB. People get on me because I was trying to get Bobby Carpenter, but I hate always risking with the injury guys. I hate we already had that with Tyron, and Tyron is like all pro and all world player. So I understood that. LVE was a good player, but he was never all world. So I was always like, why are we not trying to upgrade this if he's injured all the time? And do you see how I extended that to get Paul back on here? Do you see how I did that?
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was masterclass, honestly. I'm also excited to see what I've seen with Mozzie. Mozzie has caught a lot of flack from last year, and I've seen a lot of good things from Mozzie. I mean, we are so blessed when you look at who our beat reporters are and everything else, like with Nosy and everything else, the level of data and pictures and video that's coming out of the training camp, like it makes me feel a lot better than I felt like maybe 2 months ago when we were sitting and swimming in the uncertainty that is the front office moves. So yeah, I'm super jazzed about it.
You said it best when you talked about how difficult it is with Dak Prescott. If you are not tough, guys like Mozzie and Schoonmaker, who are brought in with expectations, the first 2 picks, and they're just like, they have a rough first year, which happens on every other team. Look at Jordan Davis for the Eagles, another hardcore fan base too. One of the players I love, he was terrible. I mean, he's been terrible for 2 years for what he should have been. I mean, we're talking a top 15 pick. And mentally, you just have to be on a different level when you're in Dallas, because Mozzie and Schoonmaker both could be broke mentally just on the scrutiny they're getting because they're top 2 picks and they're not all pros already or pro bowlers or competent starters even in their first year. They didn't be impactful players. They get killed like they're bust, like there's no chance they can improve. It's crazy. Sorry,
no, it's crazy, and honestly, you bringing that up, and I'm sorry to derail this slightly, but I want to say this to anyone who's watching this and who does watch this, is someone released something about Mozzie that I found it abhorrent that they actually released it, but at the same time, mental health issues, depression, other things like that, there's nothing to be ashamed about that. And so when I hear people sitting there talking about Mozzie and, oh, he doesn't even want to play football and whatever else, I'm like, it really must be nice to be sitting in that glass house of yours, while you sit and you judge what someone's going through. Like, I just think that we as Cowboys Nation could do a lot better job of supporting our players and supporting our team sometimes and get away from the super, super critical 24/7. You know what I mean? That's just my own personal opinion, but that's just how I roll. I mean, like I could not believe that had come out, and then I couldn't believe it continued to be a discussion point from a negativity standpoint. Everyone's human. Everyone has things they struggle with in life. There's nothing wrong with that. And I really wish that we could destigmatize that a little bit. That's just my own personal soapbox. So I apologize. Thank you for letting me say that.
You do not need to apologize for that at all. You should be thanked for that. That's awesome, Lacey. I agree with you.
Absolutely, couldn't agree more. Lacey, who's your make or break player for this Cowboys team this year?
Chuma. Chuma's one that I think is, if he makes it out of camp, like if they start him, I think that Chuma's going to have to show himself ready to, like, I didn't think that he was going to have Tyler Guyton nipping at his heels as much or even ahead of him, even though Chuma has struggled. I think Chuma is a big one. He's going into free agency. We have a lot of people going in free agency in 2025, which is scary considering how our front office works. I don't agree with, obviously Dak having a quote unquote prove it year. I think Dak's already proven himself, so I'm not even gonna say Dak on that. But I think Chuma's a really big one. I think Wanya has definitely earned his spot. I hope they extend, Wanya. I think he's done a phenomenal job, and he doesn't complain. The dude's just like, I'm just gonna go out and play ball. You know what I mean? Like, I have a lot of respect for him. But yeah, Chuma would probably be my biggest one, where it's like, especially if he gets the start. All of that, all my answers could change depending upon what the 53 man roster looks like at the end of camp. So who knows?
All right, so I already know we're not moving on from Dak, and I know you'd sign him right now. So I'm going to move right to one word to describe Dak's career, because I'm really interested in what your one word would be.
The one word. He couldn't give me two for double standard.
If you think you can do a hyphenated one.
I think spotlight. I think spotlight would be my one word for Dak. And what I mean by that is that there's just constantly a spotlight on him. And in everything he does, on, off the field, way more so than any other QB out there. In my opinion, people might, disagree with me, and that's fine. But, I just think spotlight is the biggest thing, is that he got thrown into the fire with, why am I blanking on his name? And I know I shouldn't be right now. My brain's just not functioning. Romo's injury. I mean, he was thrown into the fire with Romo's injury, and then he was immediately in the spotlight from then on out. You know what I mean? And every single year, it doesn't matter how well he does. It feels like someone will always find a way to spotlight him in a very negative manner, and that just drives me crazy.
Yeah, but it's absolutely true. If you look, it's because they have to get fan outrage. You look at the Orlovsky guy, who Dan Orlovsky is actually a very, very good analyst when he's being an analyst and not the TV character. But TV character needs to get the Cowboys outrage. So they do the all-pro, second and MVP. They do, who's your top 5 QBs in the NFC? And I'll tell you, Stafford, no problem. I get it. Stafford's won a Super Bowl, no problem. The dude in Detroit, Goff, and Jordan Love, up and coming. He's up and coming. Goff, okay, gotcha. That I get it. He's won some. He's been to a Super Bowl. Then he throws in Kirk Cousins, and this is where it's bull, because if he even puts Dak 5th, everybody goes, I think Dak's better than a lot of those guys, but he's got him in the top 5. So he has to find a way to keep him out of the top 5 to get outrage. Spotlight, as you said. So he throws Kirk Cousins in there. Never been an all-pro. Never been as good in the regular season. In 12 years, he has 1 playoff win, compared to Dak's 8 years as 2. So in no way could you ever make an argument that, and coming off an Achilles tear, and the one guy was an all-pro. And you throw that out there, and it's like, and that is exactly what you're saying. You have to find a way to get this reaction out of the millions and millions of fan base to get your clicks. And so you make up bullshit. You hate on the guy. You do this and that because they want the spotlight. And the way you do that is to put a spotlight on Dak and hate on him.
Absolutely. And not just Dak, but the entire team. And that's why I don't watch mainstream, other than seeing clips here and there on Twitter X or whatever. I don't watch that. What I watch is the content creators. You know what I mean? The Dak Attack Show, Jay Tuck. I watch that because, you're gonna get your unbiased. Sometimes it's biased and sometimes it's not. You know what I mean? It just depends upon who it is. But you're going to at least get someone who's going to look at the team and really go, okay, what do we really see from them? And so I don't tend to support the mainstream media as much as I do like the content creators. And And I would implore others to do the same, because the reason why they're doing it is because they continue to get engagement and they continue to get like viewership and things like that. And until that changes, if we don't respond and they don't get the response that they want, they're going to start talking about something else. You know what I mean? But that's my own little pet peeve. But I sometimes, like, I sit there and I go, don't respond. And then it's like my amygdala takes over and I start typing, and then I've responded and I've done the very thing that I said that I should not do. So we're all human.
Yeah. Samesies.
All right, fill in the blank here, Lacey. If blank has a breakout year, the Cowboys will be Super Bowl contenders.
If blank has a breakout year?
Yeah, if this certain player.
Does it have to be a player?
No.
Because I would say if the run game comes out, like we would be Super Bowl contenders. I think that's been the biggest thing, honestly. And I will be the first person to say that, like, I wasn't super pumped or jazzed about Zeke coming back. But looking at what was available, like, it makes sense, right? He knows he knows the offense, he knows the players, he knows the coaches. He's a leader on the team, so I get it. And I have promised Stephen Mack that if by January he's had a decent year, then I owe Zeke an apology. So I'm going to have a really awesome apology prepped and ready to go in hopes that, he proves me wrong. So
my answer to this question was Deuce Vaughn. So basically the same as you, because I was just picking like, well, if this guy gets going, our running game's going. So yeah, same thing there.
Absolutely. All right, Lacey, here you have a chance to squash your beef. You have 2 to 5 minutes to squash any beef you have with a Cowboys player, coach, content creator, owner, GM, whatever you like. Get it off your chest.
So I don't necessarily I tend to be fairly positive and I tend to be fairly kind. At least I try to be, especially on X. But like I do know that I get frustrated sometimes when it's like super negative. And this is not necessarily geared towards like Cowboys in general. This is just people in general, which is, if you wouldn't say something to someone's face, then why would you say it online? Like, why would you say certain things online that you would never, ever walk up to someone, a complete stranger, and sit and say it to their face? It's probably one of the things that I get spun up about the most when it comes to things. Like, for instance, this whole Pretty Ricky thing going on right now. That dude has hit more than he's missed. And whether or not we agree with his reasons for leaving and stopping, after all of this is done, it's his own personal life, right? It's his safety, it's his whatever. And you got people sitting there threatening, death threats and other things like that. That's insane to me. And so if anything, what I could say is I wish that people would start just being decent human beings again online to one another. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to constantly, like, if you don't agree with someone, great, you don't agree with them. You can still respect them. You can still be a decent human being. So if I get frustrated about anything, if you see me going off, like, I pretty much just like told that one dude who did a death threat to Pretty Ricky, I just called him, he was being a little bitch. But like, I don't like doing that because that's just not who I am normally. I don't like to be mean. So from a squashing the beef perspective, I apologize if I get like that, but understand where it's coming from, which is you've now pushed me so far, like, in a situation that I feel like I have to be aggressive back versus being the decent human being that I like to be online, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I got death threats for posting a Starbucks coffee cup because the person I was dating worked at Starbucks and brought me the cup, and I was basically showing love on there. And they were like, I don't try to follow everything, but I guess there's stuff going on overseas, and man, I was like, oh, my bad, damn. Like, I don't know if it's worth saying for me to die. Jesus, I apologize. Like, so yeah, that was crazy. Multiple too, like not just one. I got multiple death threats over posting a coffee cup on Instagram.
Because Starbucks was like supporting like or
something
from
overseas,
another country or something.
Yeah, something overseas that had to do with the Gaza. You know, I don't know it detailed enough. I don't want to mess it up and get us canceled. So there was something going on over there. Starbucks did something that people didn't like. What do you want me to do? I was dating a Starbucks barista. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I didn't, can I not do that because of the, peace to the world, man. I didn't mean anything by it, but it's
I wish that people would just not be so quick to make judgment. And I wish that they would just ask the question. And I wish that people understood that just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean I don't like you. It just means I have different opinions and different viewpoints. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, I think social media, as great as it is, social media is going to probably be one of the things that like totally affects how we are as human beings, like in real life too. It's going to happen with the kids and everything else. Like I'm trying to shelter my children from, online stuff and everything else. And it's hard, right? It's hard because they all want to do what their friends are doing. And I just wish that people would treat each other the way that they would in person, and like not be such judgmental asses, honestly.
Love it.
Love that. All right, give us a Cowboy shout out. Here's some positivity. Share your 3 or more Cowboys, maybe social media accounts, websites, and or content creators you want to show some love to, Lacey.
Okay, so I'm going to do more than 3, and I apologize, but there's a couple of different things going on right now that I really wish that Cowboys Nation would be aware of, number 1, and number 2, support, because there's a lot of good people doing a lot of great stuff. So one of the things that I had set up was this content creators and then a fans like group chat thing. And so I've gotten to know a lot of these different people, and that's how I know Mike and everything else. But first, I want to say, obviously J Tuck, he's been one of my first people that I went, like when I came finally online, as part of my fandom, came online. I still remember sitting there going, holy shit, J Tuck just followed me back. And he's got like 20-some thousand followers and everything else. And I still remember sitting there going like, man, he did that. So Jay Tuck of CFO Sports, he's been phenomenal. And he's always, if you guys understood like some of the things that he does for Cowboys Nation that he doesn't broadcast to the rest of the world. Like helping people make it to games that have never been to games before and different things like that. I mean, he's a phenomenal human being in my personal opinion. Your guy, Nix, he is probably one of my top favorite guys. And that's because, Nix, he sits there and he will let anyone talk. And even if he doesn't agree with them, he'll have a conversation. We joke around about him being the, spaces king. And in my opinion, he really is. Like, I have never seen anyone else run spaces the way that I see Nix run spaces, where everyone's welcome to speak, even if it's, a different team and everything else. And everyone's able to like provide information. And also he's just a wealth of knowledge, right? Laws Nation is amazing. Amazing to hear his analysis and his perspective on things. I have a lot of respect for him. And he's actually participating or actually donated some stuff to support. The first thing that I want to bring up is that Ben Larimore, he does a lot with draft stuff, but he's an amazing analyst. But one thing that Ben came to me about was, hey, I'd really like to do this raffle, right? So there's this animal rescue place in San Angelo, Texas. It's called Cassie's Place. And what's really neat about this, and I've talked to Ben a lot, he came to me and said, hey, would you be willing to help out with this? And I said, absolutely. Like, I love animals, and it's something that's near and dear to my heart. So this family who runs this place, not only do they take care of animals, but they actually have helped out during major natural disasters. They've helped veterans to get mental health support, children's education. They've been heavily involved in that. And they're doing a raffle right now. And so, Ben Larimore, actually his X handle is Larimore _ Ben. You can buy a ticket for $10, and if you buy more, or you donate more money straight to the rescue, so it's going to the right spot, right? You can actually get more tickets. The bundling, it happens a little bit better. But the prizes are amazing, guys. Honestly, like, it's 2 tickets to the Bengals game, right? And I saw the picture. If you haven't seen it online yet, the seats are friggin' amazing. Like, I would die if I got those tickets. So it's 2 tickets to the Bengals. There's a Micah Parsons plaque, digital autograph plaque thing that Ben actually donated himself. And then there's an LVE signed photo, which I actually donated. And then Laws Nation, he donated 3 different helmets. One is a regular size replica of the Salute to the Troops, which I want that helmet so friggin' bad. I actually donated money just so I could buy it. And then 2 mini helmets there. So a lot of awesome stuff. The draw date's 28 August. So it's Cassie's Place. Again, it's helping out an animal rescue, and it's helping out a family who's done so much for Cowboys Nation in general. And they're huge Cowboys fans. The other person that I want to shout out, and it's not one single person, it's a group of people. I mentioned them earlier. It's the Star We Are. They're actually running a raffle also, and it's called their 421 raffle, which in essence, it's two jerseys, a Dak Prescott jersey and a primetime Sanders jersey. And then it's a signed football Hall of Fame. Multiple Hall of Famers have signed this football, and $421. And the tickets are $25 a piece, and you can only get max of 4. So that one specifically is going to go support the YMCA sports youth programs in the Dallas metro area. And, in general, that's one of the things that I respect about the Star We Are so much, is they do so much for the local community and for Cowboys Nation. It's not the first time that they've done something like this. They've run numerous things like this. They get a lot of people involved, and I think it's just absolutely phenomenal. So I always have such wonderful things to say about them. But those would be the people that I would want to shout out. There's a lot of great things going on, and I know things are tough right now. With the economy and everything else, obviously, but there are some really good things that could happen if you're willing to open up the pocketbook just a little bit, just to even try to attempt. And then there's just amazing prizes. I'm blown away, honestly, by some of these, because I'm just like, how did you even get all this stuff to be able to do this? And I will tell you, Ben wanted me to relay to the group that for the Cassie's Place one, specifically $10 a piece. There's no limit to those like the Star We Are, but he said, honestly, he hasn't gotten a lot of donations or a lot of purchasing of the raffle tickets. So he's like, your chances are going to be pretty high to win something pretty awesome. So check out.
Send both of those to me, please. I know we've had them in the chat, I believe. But tag me in both of those on X, if you wouldn't mind, Lacey, and I'll make sure that I continually get those shot out every day. I'll make sure to send them out every day.
That would be awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. Please, I didn't mean to cut you off. Please continue.
No, it's okay. That's pretty much it. I mean, I could literally laundry list so many different people. Like, we have such great content creators, and we have such great fans. I mean, the Dak Attack Show, he's another one of my favorites. And that's because he just tells it. He's unapologetically him, which is amazing. Martin talks Cowboys, and that dude is just smarter than all get out. And then you got Dom White, who's like the super guru of recruiting and things like that. Like I'm blown away by the caliber of fans and the caliber of content creators we do have across the board. So if I missed anyone, I'm so sorry. I love you all, but I don't want to like keep them on here for the next like hour as I laundry list off everyone.
We got wrestling to watch, all right? We don't care. No, we care. That's awesome, Lacey. Thank you.
Mike, you got a question here from somebody in the chat.
Do I look like Ned Flanders? I've heard I've heard when I was fatter, I was John Goodman. So I got a lot of Fred Flintstone. When I was 300 pounds, I was told I was John Goodman, Fred Flintstone for all growing up. So now Ned Flanders, really? Do I have the Ned? I guess.
Bro, how much weight?
I think it's the mustache.
How much weight have you lost?
The Ned Flanders from Simpsons, right?
No, but how much weight have you lost?
Oh, okay. So when I was like 18, 19, I was 300 and almost 30 pounds. I got really sick, didn't know it, and I was down under 147. Diabetic. I'm diabetic. And so now I'm back to the weight I like to be at is 225. I'm 240 right now. But I was up above 250. Like I had some stuff going on. You know how it is. We're human. But I'm down to the 240 mark now, working my way back down. I want to be under 230, and that's where I should be. But yeah, I was 300 and almost 330 at my biggest when I was real young. When I was playing sports.
Well, that's kudos to you though, man. Seriously. I mean, like sucks that it happened that way, but I'm super proud of you to be able to like keep trying to work at it. I mean, I get that better than anyone. I had literally, I was telling him I was about to, retire, get out of the military. And then I found out about like the lump and everything else. And then I found out I had cancer. But along with that is I had just lost like 40 pounds. And so I was super pumped because I was literally 10 pounds away from my goal weight. And then I had to go through chemo, which they pump you full of so much steroids and everything else. And so I gained like 20 pounds back, like super quick. And I remember sitting there just being like, come on. Like, not only did you give me cancer, but then you put the weight back on.
So, man, they love to going to the doctor when you're sick, when you're used to being sick is like the hardest thing because you never feel like you're going to get good news. Yeah. Every time I go for the littlest thing, I'm like, I'm cancer. I had a skin cancer scare. And I cried so much before I could tell my best friend that I didn't have it because I was so scared that it was like, yeah, of course I have it. I get everything. I'm always sick. And he was like sitting there crying, thinking I had it because I couldn't tell him like, no, but I was crying so much. He's like, you don't have it. And I was like, no, I don't, man. I'm happy, man. I'm proud of you fighting and the weight coming off. You're good. How's the journey?
It's not been great, just because of the different medication I have to take. But it's okay. I mean, it's just going to take longer and it's not like I'm training for some show or, whatever else. So it's totally fine. It's just, it is tough. And you're absolutely right. Your whole perspective changes after something like that, where, I'd actually gotten a lump, in my neck, like right after I'd gotten done with treatment and everything else. And so immediately we went to, oh my God, it's lymphoma. And so that was my first scare. And so now I've really learned, my husband tries to remind me all the time, like I tend to have anxious energy. That's why I ramble sometimes and talk super fast. But my husband will tell me all the time, he's like, just like, don't worry about it until like, don't rabbit hole. You know what I mean? Like, don't go down that road. But it completely changes your whole outlook and perspective it's going to the doctor is no longer just a non-event. Like you always just wonder if it's something, and that does suck. But hey, I'm blessed, man. I'm blessed. I'm cancer free, and that's all that matters. And whether or not I'm carrying extra weight, it is what it is. But I understand your perspective, and I'm super proud of you for continuing to like try to reach your goals. So that's awesome.
I didn't beat cancer. So I'm not trying to compare to. I got diabetes. You beat cancer.
Yeah,
You're a badass.
But insulin stuff and diabetes stuff is so tough, like from the standpoint of managing your sugars, and it's so critical when it comes to like weight loss. Like to have to deal with that too. Like and my cancer's done, right? Like I got to take medication, but my cancer's done. You're living with it on the day-to-day basis. Like even though our experiences are different, doesn't mean that your experience is lesser than mine or vice versa. You know what I mean? It's just different. It's tough for all of us. Like that's just my perspective. I tend to try to not like compare people's like events in their lives because I just think it's unfair. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So healthy, doing good. Paul, you got any more questions? Mr. Lucky over there?
Yeah. Okay. Here we go, Lacey. Would you rather the Cowboys be active in free agency, always signing top tier free agents, but be terrible at drafting, or be the way they are now, draft excellently, and be inactive in free agency?
That's a brutal question.
Okay, can we ensure that like the Joneses aren't recording this or something? Because I'm going to say that I would rather we be better at drafting, because honestly, from my perspective, I think that what they've been able to do with some of their players, and I don't even care what round it is. I mean, Will McClay, first of all, Will McClay is he's a genius, right? Like he's just an absolute genius. We must ensure that Will McClay never matches up with someone who's good with free agency or managing, the cap, because unless they're from the Cowboys, unless something happens in the future where someone has a lobotomy and all of a sudden the Joneses start acting differently, we must make sure that Will McClay never meets that person, because that'd literally be an infinity stone, like all of them. But yeah, I would rather that we draft the way that we do, because that's years, right? Even if it's a few years, or so, it's years that we have them. And if you're getting someone who's free agency wise, like you're already getting someone who's been used. I like to buy new stuff.
Agreed.
All right, give me your bold call, Cowboys edition, Lacey. Give me a bold call.
I think we are going to have some records breaking this year. And I think that one of the records, I think that Brandon Aubrey has a real chance at, if Mike McCarthy allows him to break the NFL's record for the longest field goal. I think he does, especially with the new kickoff rules, right? Because like now they're not like kicking it out of the end zone, and he's not trying to like make a field goal from, on a kickoff. I think that that's going to conserve his leg, and he is super amazing. And I'm trying not to jinx it, so knock on wood. And I think that Micah Parsons, and I know a lot of people are down on him with this whole podcast thing. I don't give two shits what you do on your off time. I really don't. Keep being the force multiplier that you are. That entire offenses, like develop a game plan to pretty much keep one single person down. Like keep being that dude. And I think that he has a real chance at going crazy this year under Zim. So I think those are going to be like potential record-breaking moments for both of them.
You really are the queen, Lacey.
Oh,
You're
no.
awesome.
I appreciate
Lacey, this
it.
was awesome.
No, thanks for the opportunity, guys. This was fun.
You were amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your time. Lacey, I know that you've got a group of content creators and things like that, but do you can you talk to us a little bit about some content that you might have in the works or anything you're doing and where we can find your work?
Well, pretty much on my ex, right? But I'm also supporting. So Nick's one of the, my favorite content creators. He came to me and he's like, hey, I don't know if you guys are college football 25 fans, but Nick's came to me and said, hey, can you do you want to build some graphics for our dynasty? And so there's a at CFB_dynasty, all the graphics works that's being done for that dynasty are things that I'm working on or helping with and everything else. And then just on my normal X account, like, and I'm not someone who charges people for things. Like, again, I don't do what I do to make money. I do it because I enjoy it and I love photography and I love, making stuff. It's my outlet from my normal day-to-day job, which is, as a defense contractor can be somewhat like not creative and just very boring in general. And I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love the pay, but, so, I mean, just reach out to me if you guys need anything. Like, I'm more than willing to help out. Always am. If I can, I will definitely help out where I can.
That's awesome.
And remind the people one more time where they can find you on X.
At FB Cowboys Queen.
Mike, let them know where they can find you, sir.
That was an excellent episode, Lacey. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It was fun.
At CD Piglet, guys. You guys know the drill.
Guys, I'm Paul Ryan. You can find me on X at Paul_Ryan15. We appreciate you joining us, and we will see you guys next week.
See ya.
That was